Cheat your fly fish food, and here we have Skill Builder 44. Did you know there's a wrong and a right way to trim things off of your fly? Check it out, you might learn something. And we have synthetic quills and how to build up an awesome nymph underbody.
That's a big brown.
So sometimes when I'm tying flies, I'm trying to get more efficient at the vise. I'm trying to find the simplest way to do it. But for me, the most important thing is a clean fly. I'd rather have a clean fly than a fly that's, super, super fast and a little bit messy. But one thing that you can do to speed up time and cleanliness, and you can see here I've got some crystal flash. You can see I've got all different lengths of the crystal flash. And, one way to tie this in, if like say I was going to put this out the tail of the fly, I could tie it all in like this and then wrap back. And then come in here and trim this off, okay? But that's a little bit, it's a little bit easier to trim it first and then tie it in. And I'll show you how I'd go about this. Like, I don't know, I'm gonna come in here and find roughly the shortest of these fibers and just cut them all flush. Yes, Cheech must have budget for days for crystal flash. I know, I think I wasted just about 8 inches worth of one strand, so my bad. But be gone. We don't have time for that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay that. Let's say that I want to tie this crystal flash so that it's even with the end of the orange thread. What I'm going to do is just kind of angle that down, tie it in back here, or let's say I'll tie it in even long. Okay, so there are two wraps here. Now I can just undo my tension a little tiny bit and pull that back exactly to where I want it and wrap forward. Okay, that eliminates this step, and it's so much easier just to do it first so that you can line it up and get it super, super clean. Okay, so there is a way I like to tie it in. So let's say that we don't. Well, let's say that we have materials going over the front of the tie-in point, because sometimes you have to tie stuff in this way. Okay, so let's say that I tie this in, I'm going to trim it after the fact. There's a right way and a wrong way to do this, in my opinion. And this is kind of being nitpicky, but it's going to help you have cleaner flies. So I see a lot of people come up to materials like this and just come in here with their scissors and just kind of cut like this. Okay, what that's going to do is it's not going to get all those fibers perfectly flush. There's always going to be a little bit of flex down here. The other thing is these fibers are so small and these blades are so small. Once I start cutting it, it will kind of shift them out of the way and not make the cleanest cut. So what I'm suggesting is if your materials are long enough, always grab those and put them under tension before you trim it. So look at this. If I grab this clump of feathers now and I just trim it, let's see, I have a real short one right there. So I'm gonna have to grab it real close. There's top view. There's a camera view, and if I pull that straight up, I can just get my scissors right here and trim that off. Okay, so, and don't stretch crystal flash or it gets curly. So anyway, if you put your material under a little tiny bit of tension before you cut off, it's going to be a lot cleaner like that. It's going to be a lot more effective, but just kind of get used to that. You pull tension on whatever it is you're cutting before you cut it. For example, I'll show you one last thing. I'll just throw a whip finish here. And here's GSP thread. Okay, GSP thread is the downfall of many a good pair of scissors because you can't cut it. So look at this. This one right here is no tension here, and if I try to cut it, it won't cut at all. Okay. And so when people say, hey, GSP is impossible to cut with my scissors, it probably means that it's not under tension. So if I just pull this up, give it a little bit of tension here, I can just open my scissors and push them into it like that. And it cuts the GSP. So under tension, you'll be able to cut it. If it's not under tension, good luck. Here's another idea here. So I'm pulling down on this thread. Let's say I just throw a whip finish in there. Put my scissors here and trim. So the tension is what makes it cut easy and clean. So when you cut stuff, cut it under tension if you can. We're going to show off these fancy synthetic tapered peacock quills. These are designed to look just like it says, a peacock quill. Anyway, sometimes peacock quills can be either hard to find, hard to make, or very fragile. Also, they're not very long. So if you want a little bit longer quill and all that other jazz, this is a great alternative. So I'm going to show you how to use these. Not because they're particularly hard, it's just when you get something like this, it's not like a hologram you're supposed to stare at for 30 seconds and then it turns into a picture of Harambe or something like that. I saw one of those the other day and it was awesome. But this isn't one of those. This is just a bunch of sheets. But anyway, when you peel one of these off, it's a little sticker. I forgot, I peeled one off before we started the video. It's been sitting on my thumb. But it goes into a little triangular shape. See, it's thick here. And then it goes down to a fine taper. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tie this in sticky side up. It just has a little bit of adhesive. I think it's just to kind of keep it on the paper. But anyway, we're just going to throw this in here. Actually, I'm going to trim some of that off. It stays really thin all the way up. And that's an advantage if you're tying like a real small fly. This is about a 14, so I'll cut off about to right there. So take this and wrap that down my fly. Use touching turns. Try to keep this neat and tidy underneath because that's going to show through. These are somewhat transparent. And there are all kinds of synthetic quills out there. These Hemingways surely do the trick. There are a few other brands that do well, and I just like that they're tapered and triangular in shape. All right, so once I have this wrapped back here, I'm just going to wrap this up again, and I'm going to unwind my thread and build up a little bit of a taper. Keep in mind that you're not going to be able to build taper with this material. It's just a plastic sticker that you're going to put over the top of thread. So if you want any taper to be there, you by darn better build it yourself. All right, so there we go. That's tapery enough for me. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold it over. Now you can wrap it with the black stripe on the back or the black stripe in the front. It's going to look so similar at the end of this, it doesn't really matter. But I've got the black stripe in the back. And I'm just going to hold this rotary style so I can keep nice and even tension. And I'm just going to make that black stripe be my guide for how I want this to look. So I just kind of use the black stripe to guide that up the fly. Sorry, I'm all hands for a second. I'll trim that out of there. But there you have a really cool looking quill body. It's a synthetic quill, translucent. As you can see, the red pops through. If I were going to use this on like a nymph or a chronomid or something, I'd coat it with resin. If I were going to use it on a dry fly, I'd maybe put just a little bit of head cement on there just to seal it up a little bit. Anyway, that's how to use a synthetic quill. Okay, I have a Tiemco 200R size 4 in the vise, and I'm going to be tying some stoneflies. I've been working on a really cool stonefly lately, and I wanted to show a technique that I use to build up an underbody on a big stonefly. A lot of times when you have a bunch of bulk on your fly, it gives a lot of room for weight. I'm going to do this with lead. You can either do it with lead wire or lead-free wire, or I just use the lead that you pay for, not the free kind. Hardy har har, joke joke. Yes, I'm just demonstrating with lead wire. If you so choose and you want to protect the environment, which you should, use lead-free wire. This is for demonstration purposes, so all the people who are going to yell at me for touching lead with my fingers, just imagine that it's lead-free wire. So there you go. There's our freaking legal disclaimer. But I have it in 010 all the way up to 030, and I'm going to use various sizes on this to build up some under profile. Okay, so what I'm going to do first is I'm going to grab the 0.25, and I'm just going to start this right here in the middle, and I'm going to give it a healthy amount of wraps. This is kind of going to be the main build-up spot for the thorax. So I like to just grab my lead, wiggle it off. You do waste a little lead here. You can find ways to conserve it, so don't roast me over that too bad. That's just how I do it. All right, so I'm going to make the thorax of that fella sit right there, and then I'm going to lightly brush it with a little bit of super glue. If you don't do this, sometimes the lead can split apart and split all or slip all around. Now I'm going to grab some O2O, and I'm going to come in here behind this and just do like, I don't know, a few wraps here. It's a little bit thinner than the O25, and then I'm going to finish off with a little bit of O15 back here. So as you can see, I'm just stepping down in size, and instead of just having a bunch of dubbing under that body, we're going to have a whole bunch of weight. We're packing it in really nice. So I'm going to take that O15 again, and I'm just going to put a few turns, where'd it go? Put a few turns in front of this lead in the front. And you can see that I only did super glue on the main section because I'm kind of using that to build in front of or in, behind. Okay, so there's kind of the first layer. I'm going to go ahead and coat that whole thing with super glue now. Just like that. So once we have that done, I'm going to grab a little bit more of the O2O. So this biggest layer is O25. I'm going to bring in some O2O and just go right over the top of that one. Just like this. So about like that. And when I'm breaking this off, I'm grabbing the lead pretty tightly and breaking it off like that. So anyway, that is a nicely tapered body that we can use to build a stonefly on. Now, one other little hack. I'm not going to show you the whole process. You kind of get how to build the lead, but check this out. I've done several. Let me see. I've pre-made a few. So I mixed in, and sometimes your super glue gets a little clumpy on top, but we're going to cover this whole thing up. But here I have multiple different color or sizes of lead, but I've got a 4mm tungsten bead, or maybe it's a 3.5, I can't remember, but it's a 4mm and then two 4.6s there. So that's a ton of weight, and it really isn't much bigger than a lead body. And you can even use different sizes of beads to add more or less. This one's maybe the heaviest one that I did. So you can really get an awesome depth charge with that. Here's one that I did a little bit thicker. So you kind of just decide how you want it to look. You can see here on this top section, I even took some O15 and wrapped it in between the O2O to really make it more dense. So anyway, use different types of lead. I mean lead-free wire. That's what I meant to say the whole time. And build up some underbodies for your nymphs to get down to Chinatown. Okay, so once we have a body like this, you can see I still have a little bit of wet super glue there. Now our job is to cover all this up so that we can tie on top of it. You can use really, really thick thread, which I do a lot. On this one I have some of this underbody stuff. It's 630 denier. It's from Uni, but any type of yarnish, real thick stuff is what I like to use. So I'll just start about right there. And this stuff really builds up fast. So no unnecessary wraps, and you're going to want to spin your thread counterclockwise to do this. So I'll come up here first, and when it starts to cord up, just unwind it, and then just be careful not to bulk it up too much. You can see it's a little bit bumpy up there, but we don't need it to be perfect with this because we still are going to tie a fly on this, but we want it to be a lot better than we found it. So I'm just going to go over the top of all this, kind of not super tight pressure at first because you hope that that lead is totally seated, but sometimes it can slide around if you put too much pressure on. So I'm just going to kind of go up and down and fill in spots as I see fit. You know, every fly is a little bit different, the way that the taper is going to work. So I'll step down on this next one. And then once you get down to the bare hook, you really got to space out your thread wraps to not add too much bulk right there. That's not bad. I think I'm too corded up here. Yeah, if you got to undo a few turns, that's fine. So here I got a real nice flat stretch. So see, I'm making good progress back here. Again, it doesn't have to be perfectly smooth. You're just kind of giving yourself a better base than the lead. Those last 4 or 5 wraps got real corded. If you're a left-handed tyer, you don't have to worry about this. It just kind of unwinds naturally as you tie. Okay, so there you have it for the most part. One more little unwind, and now we have a really nice base that we can use to tie our fly. So a lot of times I'll just kind of prep a bunch of bodies like this, and you can coat that with super glue right now if you want. You can do a bunch of stuff, but if it's going to be a dark fly, just come over this with a dark marker. There's not a black version of this, but that's fine. It's just an underbody. And this will just prevent any little thread that wants to poke out. We're telling them it's not welcome to the party. But anyway, that is a killer way to make a nice weighted underbody. This is how I do it with the tungsten beads. So the white stuff really goes over those well right here. I think I got the program down on this one pretty well. You can see I was just crossing over the beads. The trick to going over the top of the beads is coat them with super glue, or your thread will just slip all around. Put super glue on those beads and your thread will go right over the top of them to the next section. Anyway, tie heavy nymphs. Have fun fishing, and only use lead-free wire, ever.